been involved in several different areas. I was involved in a project about 10 years ago that looked at the money-making practices of homeless youth in Toronto with Steve Gates, who I've been collaborating with now for the last 10 years or so. And since then, we've been looking at how homelessness seems to be increasingly criminalized in a lot of different jurisdictions across the country. So we're working on a project right now with a group called Justice for Children and Youth, and we are looking at the ticketing practices that are being are developing in the city with regards to homeless people in general, but our focus is mainly on homeless youth. Well, I think one of the main reasons why it's important is that there's not a lot of information known about this in Canada. A lot of people have been suggesting that ticketing is becoming more prevalent, and there's some evidence to suggest that it is. But we're looking in more detail at who's getting tickets and for what types of offenses. And I don't think that information is really known about in Canada. And I think both policymakers and the public would benefit if they were to understand in more detail what's going on in the streets in terms of ticketing and charging of homeless people. Well, I think some of the key issues that need to be addressed would be how homelessness is changing over the last few years, how there are more people who seem to be in that predicament. That was not the case in the past. I think it's also important to know that the homeless population is not homogeneous. It's very fragmented, and there's different groups who are homeless. And I think understanding that is something that's important, because I think a lot of people in today's society are falling through the cracks and are ending up homeless. And I think that's an important thing we should be thinking about. Well, I think there's got to be, there's going to be change on several fronts. I think there's got to be more public awareness and public understanding of the issue. I also think there needs to be, if change were to be implemented, I think there needs to be more political will to do something long-term in terms of dealing with the problem. It seems to be more of a patchwork emergency response at the present, and it has been for several years now. And I think we need to have more of a long-term determined strategy to deal with the problem, as opposed to, as they say, more of a patchwork Band-Aid kind of exercise, which has been the case now for several years. Well, I think it should be multi-leveled. In terms of governments, I think it should be dealt with at the municipal, the provincial, and the federal levels, and there doesn't seem to be much coordination between those three levels of government at the present time in dealing with the problem. And I think there needs to be a national strategy to combat the problem, and as I said, right now there doesn't seem to be any strong initiatives at the national level to try to coordinate the provinces and get the municipalities involved in dealing with the problem of homelessness. It's going to be taking an interesting direction to me. It hasn't been finalized yet, but I think that my next project is going to be working with homeless people and their pets. I'm working at the University of Guelph with a veterinarian who is interested in research on homelessness and pets. And this is one of the areas that I think is interesting, because research so far has been finding that homeless people that do have pets find them a great help, a great support, but there's not much support for their animals. I mean, their animals in many respects, it's hard to get them help, hard to get them vaccinated, spayed and neutered, and we're looking at sort of the relationship between well-being and ownership of pets. So that's where I think I'm going to be going next.